My family moved to Canada when I was 4, but we had actually left Peru when I was a newborn, and we lived in Europe for 4 years. The reason for leaving Peru was just it was kind of a dangerous place. So they just wanted a safe place to start a family. My dad saw a brochure for Expo 86 and came for Expo 86 and was like, okay, this will do. And that was it. My name is Alvaro Rojas. I'm a composer and guitar player. Peruvian culture was represented through music and food around the house. Records and music was happening in the house, different kinds of traditional Peruvian music, and food, you know, making Peruvian food. And we would also go back every year, or every 2 years to try and stay connected to family and that culture. But I kind of took it for granted, really, and was more interested in being Canadian, I think. It wasn't until I was in my sort of late teens where, you know, I had been playing music for a few years, playing guitar for a few years, and started actually listening a little bit more deeply to the music that they were playing around the house, the Peruvian music that they were playing around the house. Kind of starting to build a connection with it again. Even though I didn't really feel too Peruvian growing up in Canada, I still had that little bit of a connection to that culture, and it was just, my curiosity just sort of built from there, and I was able to dig a little deeper into it. Integrating the sounds of Peruvian music into my own world was a conscious decision. For years, I'd been playing a lot of different kinds of gigs and doing a lot of kind of different work in music. And sort of the final frontier was actually going a little bit more in depth into my own music, into writing my own music, which I'd always done, but I'd never really gone all in on it. The music of Peru, I'd always been listening to it and just kind of absorbing it, and it almost felt like a secret ingredient. It started to feel like that, and I could actually dig in a little bit more into it and learn and realize just how much there is to learn.
No, Valentín, con palo no vale, Valentín.
Getting to work with Susana Baca was a huge part of this album called Grand Casa, which I released in 2020. And that was an album where I kind of reconnected with some of this Peruvian and Afro-Peruvian music. Her music was the biggest influence on that project. I'd just been listening to so much of it. My parents listened to it growing up. And it was just sort of dreaming big and thinking, you know, like, who would I like to work with more than anybody? And it was her, obviously, and it seemed like a bit of a pipe dream. She's like the Mavis Staples of Afro-Peruvian music. Yeah, a total icon and an incredible artist and voice. My cousins are in Canada as well, and mostly in Ontario. They were definitely all like really amazed and surprised when I did this song with Susana Baca. That was sort of a big family deal. Street cred, I guess, yeah. So one of the things that drew me into Peruvian music at first was this particular rhythm that I kept hearing over and over again in different songs, and kind of in different ways it would show up. Kind of a 12/8, sort of a hypnotic, repeating pattern.
What would they play underneath that or on top of it?
They'll put the kitchen sink on top of it, but really this rhythm is kind of central to it. And it outlines basically a 1/4/5 pattern. This rhythm is just so flexible. I just like to take that rhythm by itself and just change the notes basically, and just maybe make it something that's a little bit more in my own musical vocabulary, using my own kind of world. So Ken, try this. If we go to A, we'll keep the same rhythm. I guess so. That was not that long ago, really. Maybe about 2018 or 2017, around there is when I really decided to dig into this music and see how I could incorporate it into my world along with all the other things that I've been developing over the years. Most of the people that I perform with and play with are creative people, and they're interested in new ideas and learning new things too. You know, it was something different for them, sometimes a challenge, something, it's mostly rhythmically, ways that they hadn't necessarily approached playing music. There was always familiar elements for them, but it was always like one little twist, usually a rhythmic kind of a twist that they hadn't been too familiar with. This is my buddy, Cole Schmidt, and we've been making music together for a long time now, we better not do the math, but almost 20 years, I think. And this is a piece that we're just kind of going to dig into today that's sort of based on that waltz that we touched on a little bit. This next project I'm working on is sort of focusing on some solo guitar pieces, different styles, and having a variety of improvisers interacting with these pieces and contributing to these pieces in different ways. You can pull names out of a hat and put them together, and you'll get something special and something unique for that moment. That's what I want to hear too. I want to hear things sounding a little bit more fluid, a little bit more elastic, a little bit crunchier, allowing people the freedom to go to these places and not be so rigid is just closer to the sound I was hearing. Once upon a time, Latin music was maybe there'd be like a salsa band or something. I definitely feel like in the last 5-6 years or so, I've noticed a bigger and a richer Latin community in Vancouver, and it's being reflected in the music community. When I go back to Peru, I definitely feel like a gringo Canadian and not in any way Peruvian. I feel like a tourist. I do regret in some ways not getting the opportunity to grow up like a teenager in Peru. I think that would have been so much fun. The deeper I go into exploring music from Peru, just the bigger it is. And I'm by no means an expert, and I'm not trying to be an expert. It's just something that's it's just fascinating, and I just want to learn more about it.